Welcome to Keep the Line Moving, the podcast where leadership meets life and inspiration. Here we spotlight extraordinary leaders. We're diving deep into how they inspire, motivate, and lead with strategy and empathy to achieve the extraordinary. Here we go. Episode 142 of the podcast, and we're talking about never quitting. We talk about this a lot, resilience, on the podcast and different methods from which to draw from your inner strength, right? Well, our guest this week, Jim Roddy, is an author, a keynote speaker, podcast host, moderator, business coach, and consultant. He's also a walk-on. He walked on at Gannon University to play basketball. What a story this is. He's also a cancer survivor. He works with high-initiative, growth-oriented organizations to help them uncover their blind spots with customers, employees, and business best practices. Again, he is the author of The Walk-On Method to Career and Business Success and Hire Like You Just Beat Cancer. He's also a great storyteller, and he was recommended to me by our mutual friend, Damon Lemby, who runs Learn It out in the Bay Area. I'm so glad Damon recommended Jim because this is a great conversation. We dive into some topics that will help you, right? And it's entertaining. Jim believes in that. Infotainment, right? You be the judge. Here we go with the conversation with Jim Roddy on Keep the Line Moving. Okay, everybody, look who it is. Jim Roddy, ladies and gentlemen, a future best-selling author. Jim, I've got you smiling already. You like that, don't you?
Yes, I do. That'd be a great place to be. Nice to connect with you today, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. It's wonderful because we got introduced by our mutual friend, Damon Lemby, who's wonderful at Learn It. So I'm so glad that he made that introduction. So let's get the people up to date on what you're doing. So tell us about your day job, and then we'll dovetail into the things that you're very passionate about.
Sure. So my day job is I'm president and CEO of the Retail Solutions Providers Association, more commonly known by its acronym, the RSPA. It's a technology backdrop, but it's really a business association. So we're helping people run their business better, connect with each other better. We talk a lot about leadership best practices and just general business best practices, but really focus on that specific niche.
When you start your day, what is top of mind to a president of a company that you just beautifully described?
So first, we are remote. Our entire team of 10 is spread throughout North America. There's one thing I have, and I have my paper planner here. I'm still old school that way. I do electronic, but also paper. And there's a note that I've been carrying with me because before I was with the RSPA, I was a coach for small businesses for a while. Prior to that, 11 years, I was president of a for-profit technology magazine publisher. We had, with all our satellite offices, we have about 100 people. And so I have a note that says, "It is my job to design, engineer, and work on this company until it can function well without my constant intervention. There are things your business needs that only you can provide. Delegate everything else." So while there is stuff to do and people to connect with and emails to catch up on, that is always in the forefront for me. Am I delegating to people? Am I developing people? Am I building them up? Because, Mother Nature, Father Time are undefeated. And so the more that I can work and grow other people, the better off they're going to be, the better off I'm going to be, the better off the organization and our community is going to be.
That is, we're going to get into sports and walk-on method and all that wonderful that make up you and what you stand for. But first, that is tremendous. Before you had this job, you were a coach. Before that, you said you were also a president. So you've been around leadership for many, many years. When you were a coach and you coached leaders, did you help them to craft a way in which they approach their day-to-day? Because everybody thinks in a general sense that leadership is this big macro. I walk into a room and I say things, I'm trying to make a point here. Just to say that, how micro were you when you coached and helping people figure out the best way in which they could do what you said, which is, touch the lives of people and make sure that folks are going in the right direction?
I was as micro as the situation required me to be. Like, I can think of one engagement talking to an organization, their leadership team, and they wanted to shift to more of the recurring revenue business model. So that was very much at a high level. That was just me asking them a lot of questions and them saying, I don't know if we have a great answer to that question, or mapping out the options, and they went and ran with it. But I've even gotten as micro as I remember talking to a business owner. He's in his car, sitting in a parking lot, and just saying, like, man, like, life is tough for me. And so we really got into the details in terms of how his life could get better. And so one of the big things that I was constantly reinforcing, especially with small business owners, is they would say, yeah, this employee, they're not doing it as well as me, or they're not doing it exactly like me. And my answer for them was, what percent good are they? And they'd be like, well, 80% of me. I'm like, you're winning. That should be great. No one is going to be 100% exactly what you do. So if you get an 80% and then another 80%, another 80% employee, and then you fill in the gaps where you need to, that is winning. So that was probably the most micro that I would have to get on a regular basis with these small business leaders. They're so used to, as Michael Gerber, the famous author, talked about, doing it, right? Like every single day. It was harder for them to teach and watch other people and see them make their own mistakes. And that's the same advice that I received when I started getting into sports coaching. I went, and a soccer coach, longtime college soccer coach, it was open to any youth coach. And so there would have been like 100 coaches invited. Only 3 of us showed up. And his first thing he said was, hey, how'd you guys learn to throw a football? And the guys were like, I don't know, we threw a football. Yes. Go, don't be lecturing to everybody, right? Let people practice, let them make mistakes, let them learn the same way that you learn, but then guide them and pick them up whenever they make the mistake. So again, that's to answer your question. Sometimes we really got into the nitty gritty, but it's only when people needed it.
Did you like coaching for those 10 years, Jim?
I'd say yes. The thing that I would always struggled with is I felt like every moment I had to provide value, right? Like I have to be giving some advice, but once I got beyond that, and I realized, and some of the folks who I coached drew this out, and somebody told it to me specifically. If you ask the right questions and you get the right data on the table, oftentimes they will figure it out themselves, right? A lot of times leaders don't have anybody that they can talk their problems through with. And they're not looking for that other person to say, now that you've described the situation, let me give you the 5-point answer. And so once I got over that mental hurdle that I placed in front of myself, that we're just having a conversation. And if it leads to something 1% better or 1/10 of 1% better, that's great. I didn't have to have all the answers, but I needed to help them have that dialogue. And a lot of that was through questions. And a lot of that was, just again, not necessarily giving advice, but having them share their examples and ask how that's going.
So that's a perfect segue, if I may, into your walk-on story at Gannon University, because I want to know who coached you and who believed in you and how that all unfolded. But let's have you say it. This is great. The walk-on method. It's wonderful. I'm looking at it right here. You and I have talked about it. Folks are reading it. Like I said, you're going to be a best-selling author, especially after this podcast that goes out to millions. But Jim, all kidding aside, tell us about your walk-on. What were you like as a person in 1988?
Sure. Younger, and more flexible. That's for sure. So,
For sure.
yeah. So the book, like you mentioned, the Walk-On Method to Career and Business Success. So I was a walk-on, a non-scholarship athlete. Wanted to play for my dream team. Growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania, was Gannon University, the Gannon Golden Knights. They were, and have returned to recently, become a small college basketball powerhouse. They play on the Division II level. And so growing up watching those games, there's something about the emotion that was in that place. It was rated as the most difficult place to play in all of small college basketball. They'd get 2,500 fans. It was a gymnasium, not an arena. Fans were right on the floor. I mean, it was loud and it was really intoxicating. And I knew I was going to go to Gannon for college, and I really wanted to play on the basketball team. But the high school that I went to, I graduated third in my class, but I was not in the top 10%. So you can do the math there. We only had 15 graduates in our class, not 15. And so we didn't have the resources. I didn't have the scouts. Everybody had to play every sport, is what they did. But I had the dream of walking on at Gannon and playing on that team. So I just had to do what I had to do. I called up the coach and wanted to find out how do they do tryouts? And they said they really didn't do tryouts. But when school started, it was, after school, you would try to play pickup basketball. And so I would show up and see all the scholarship guys playing, and can I play next with you guys? And they'd be like, thanks. And then the game would end and they'd pick up three guys who were on the court. And so I had an uphill battle just even trying to get noticed. And then long story short, I did make the team. So I will stop there. I can go on more with what happened over those 4 years. But that was when I was 18 years old, dreaming of doing something that a lot of people said, you're crazy, right? These guys were 6'7", 6'9". They recruited older guys, like guys out of the Army, 28 years old, 31 years old out of the steel mills. I was only 18 years old and weighing 145 pounds, right? Going to a tiny, tiny school. But I thought, I'm going to do what it takes in order to make the team. And I did make the team because of the effort that I put forth, and they wanted a guy like that on the team.
Which is wonderful. That is so wonderful. And I've buried the lead a little bit here. I was a walk-on too, right? At St. Mary's, you learn so much when it's not given to you, right? And you have to earn your spot and earn your place, and just commingling with the scholarship players was just I'm friends with those guys too. It's just amazing that the camaraderie that's developed and the like you say, and that's the genesis and the core of the book, which is those wonderful life lessons that can apply to so much that we do in our lives. Safe to say, right, Jim?
Absolutely. And one of the steps of the walk-on method is running uphill, right? When you get to an obstacle, we are taught like slow down or walk away or wait for somebody to give something to you. But if you see that obstacle and you say, I'm going to learn from it, I'm going to lean into a difficult situation, I am intentionally going to step outside of my comfort zone without somebody dragging me outside the comfort zone. If you do that in one area and do it in another and another, that starts building up a habit that just leads to lifelong success. But I will say, in some of the stories that we have in the walk-on method, that first step, I mean, when I called Tom Chapman, who was the head coach at Gannon, again, his name doesn't mean anybody to, I'm thinking, most of our listeners here. He did end up coaching at St. Bonaventure, and then he became a school superintendent. But he was larger than life in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I picked up the phone and tried calling him. I just remember my heart pounding through my chest when he actually answered the phone. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to him, right? So, but it was that first step, and then you just have to keep going and going. But oftentimes people make excuses for why they shouldn't or couldn't take the first step. But I've become a big fan of try, test, measure, adapt. But step number one is try. So you got to put yourself out there.
Okay, so let's make that transition. Let's take the walk-on method and go right into business or life, Jim, right? Because It's not just business, because there's people in high school that listen right now, and then there's people that are retired that still want to accomplish something and still have purpose. So the walk-on method, as I'm looking at it right now, the 5 steps, if someone were to say, okay, Jim, extract the core of these 5 steps, take us through that if you could, please.
Sure. Yeah. So step number one, I'll take them one by one, and then we can chat about each one if you want. So
Perfect.
Step number one is take a big shot, because anybody can make a layup. And so oftentimes people sell themselves short when they're setting their next goal, whether it's in sports or whether it's in career or whether it's in life. What you need to do is say, like, what do I really want versus just playing it's safe. And so one example of that in the book, we have Colleen Healy. She was a good athlete, not a great athlete, but she actually got a Division II scholarship. She was from Connecticut. And so she's having a really good freshman basketball season, but just one day said, I can do better. Like, I wonder if I could play at the University of Connecticut. Well, I'm never going to know if I don't take that big shot. So even though she was the first member of her family to go to college, let alone have a scholarship for it, she quit where she was going, Division II New Haven, and went home and told her parents, I've got this dream and I'm going to work to get this dream. I was nervous about calling up Tom Chapman. She picked up the phone and called up Gino Ariema, right, who is now known as like the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. And Gino said to her, like, you can't play right away. The best I can do is you can be a manager on the team for a year, and then we give you a chance to try out and play on the team. And sure enough, that's what she ended up doing. Now she became a role player on the team, but some of the connections she has, like it's funny, Gino Ariema just set some, coaching record, and they have all the pictures of all the great players there, the Rebecca Lobos, the Jennifer Azizis of the world. And there's Colleen Healy right in the middle of all of them. And part of her is like, I have no business being here whatsoever. And she says, when they talk about UConn and the legacy of it, she's like, my name will never be mentioned. But that experience led her throughout the rest of her life. So again, Colleen Healy is a great example of really take that big shot. Don't take the safe path. Focus on really what you want to do. She said, I don't want to look back years from now. This is her explanation to her parents. I don't want to look back years from now and say, I wonder if I could have done it. And her dad said to her, that's all I need to hear. I'm supporting you and I'm behind you 100%.
Jim, let me add something to this. I love that story, by the way. That is a great story, a signature story in your book. And I will add something to this. So I teach at NYU, and I start every semester, and we read 2 quotes within the first 15 minutes of the class. And they're paralleling exactly what you're saying. One is from Jim Carrey, and the sentiment, the Jim quote, Carrey, is that his father wanted to be a comedian. He was very funny, but he chose the safe route and became an accountant. And he was fired from that safe job, and they lived in and out of cars and things of that nature. It's well chronicled, right? They had a tough time. And Jim Carrey said, I learned from my father many lessons. And one of them was, instead of playing it safe and getting a safe job, you might as well do something you love.
Yep.
Because we can never predict when you can get fired from this or let go of that, or, the downsizing and things of that nature. And then we also talk about the Steve Jobs quote about that everybody that's doing amazing things are done by people that are no smarter than you. It's just a matter of pushing yourself, to your great point, which is point number 1, take a big shot. All right, what else would you like to highlight from the top 5? I think this is wonderful, and your conversations here, these are tremendous.
Step number 2, it ties in with what you talked about. It's make a passion statement, not a fashion statement. And so it talks about prepare with passion, practice with passion, and then play with passion. So a lot of folks are like, man, I wish my dream would come true. Or they say, when that moment comes, man, I'm really going to be up for the challenge. But what I learned talking to all these walk-ons and through my own experience, yeah, everybody can play with passion when all the lights are on, but you have to prepare and practice, right? When nobody is looking, you have to put in that extra work. And one of the examples we have in the book is a gentleman named Sean Bedford. He was a walk-on at Georgia Tech for their football program. He didn't have the size and athleticism of other people, but he said, I'm going to put in extra work in the weight room. I'm going to put in extra time on the practice field and even in the film room. So when he was on the scout team, so those are the guys who have to mimic what the other teams would do, he would watch extra film on the other team, right? And so he would study the moves. And so that way he was a way better scout team player. And then they started saying, well, if your brain works that way, maybe we could use you on the first team, right? On offense, he ended up being center and ended up becoming all conference. So he used a lot of that brain power that he had and really channeled it in the right way. So again, that's step number 2. You have to prepare and practice just as hard as you'll play when all the lights are on.
That is the key. The key is following your passion with effort, right? And you have to back it up. You could say, oh, I love this, I want to be here, but you have to do the work. So how do you advise people to do that? When you look at someone in the eye that you're coaching or you've come in contact with, and let's go back to your coaching, right? I want to hear some implementation stories. Do you ask them directly, what are you doing to, service your passion? How do you go about that?
Yeah, well, part of it is realizing there's no shortcut to success. There's no snap your fingers and everything falls in to place. Like you mentioned, Jim Carrey and Steve Jobs. Those are not overnight success stories, right? We didn't hear about them on day one when they were doing what they were doing. And that's one thing is making sure that folks understand. And part of the big theme of the book is ordinary people will accomplish extraordinary feats when their energy is properly channeled. So are you properly channeling your energy? What are you reading? What are you consuming? Are you part of any associations that you're learning best practices from people? Or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping it works out, or staring at the ceiling tiles and going, please, divine intervention, help me figure this thing out. So if you're not willing to get those calluses on your hand, if you're not willing to do the extra things, then it's going to be way harder for you to have success. So that's part of what it is. Asking folks those questions: are you really doing all the things that it takes, working hard, working smart, to get the outcome that you not just hoping for, but that you're working for?
Before we get to the next three, let me ask you this. Was there a common thread personality-wise to the 31 people that you interviewed for the book?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Some of them would talk on and on and on. Some of them, it was hard to pull a lot out of them. Some were in science, some were pastors. There were no common personality types or even education types or family upbringings or things of that nature. There were a handful of common things, but the one that I will point out is, and this is a power that everybody has, most every single one of them at some point they wanted to quit. They were like, this is too hard. And so Sean Bedford, Colleen Healy, I just mentioned, Colleen Healy needed her dad to say to her, I got your back, I believe you can do this. Sean Bedford had injuries. He had his grandparents had passed away, and he thought, I'm not even getting any playing time, is this worth it? It was one of his family members who said, I believe in you, just keep showing up, just keep trying. It was unbelievable how that was threaded through almost every story that we had. At these low points, somebody in their life might have said one or two words or went out of their way to say, how are you doing? Hey, this is a tough point. This is going to be a tough thing, but you're going to get through it. I believe in you. We all have that power to do it. That's impacted me. I try to go out of my way now way more often than I ever did before, just to give at least one word of encouragement to folks who are phrase here and there and tell them to keep up the good work.
Okay, hit us with the last three steps, and then we will call it a day, my friend.
Great. So the last three, I alluded to it earlier. Run uphill takes longer, makes you stronger. Again, we're taught to avoid obstacles or seek the path of least resistance. I actually think it's a gift to get a lot of obstacles, right? Because then you really build up that muscle memory. Step 4, we call it no fuss, all must. So the no fuss means control your emotions, especially the negative ones, as you're seeking to advance your career, right? If something bad happens to you, or you get passed over for promotion, or you miss out on a big sale, just shake your head, say, "Aw, shucks, what could I do better?" But get back to work. Don't be wallowing in it at all. So that's the no fuss portion of it. And then all must is maximize your unique strengths. Like I mentioned, the reason that I played on the Gannon basketball team for 4 years was not because of the scoring ability that I showed in high school. It was not because I was 5'10" or 145 pounds, right? Everybody was bigger, stronger, faster, everything else than me. But I helped them set the pace in practice. The coaches knew if we were running sprints, whether it was the first thing in practice or the last thing in practice early in the season, the last practice of the season, I was going 100%. And so those other folks, I was kind of pulling them along if they needed to be. And also I did well in the classroom, and I helped raise the team grade point average. So whatever you need to do, right, in order to get that goal, that's just a reality. And then step number 5 is make them throw you out of the gym. And so in more blunt terms, it's never, ever, 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 ever quit. And the example I'll share about that is Alan Williams. He was a walk-on at Wake Forest as a basketball player. They had a coaching change. And so the new coaching staff told him, hey, we're looking for a big guy. Like, we don't need you. He kept showing up at the optional workouts. He kept showing up at track. And even though they said, you can't run with us, they're running up the hill. He's running up a hill next to them. When they have walk-on tryouts, the coaches didn't even tell him about the walk-on tryouts. He found out about it. He's like, I am showing up. I'm doing whatever it takes. And he turned that into a long-term career there. And now he's a successful business owner. And again, he's had a lot of people tell him no, but he keeps showing up all the time. So those are the last 3 steps, and that kind of rounds out, again, the walk-on method. It just is really focused on what is the right thing to do and focusing and channeling your energy.
That's great. Well said, Jim. And you've also written another book about being a cancer survivor. That's amazing. What prompted you to do that?
Yeah, so the book is called Higher Like You Just Beat Cancer. And if anybody, I'll share this with everybody. If anybody wants you can buy a copy of the Walk-On Method on Amazon for Higher Like You Just Beat Cancer. You can email me at jim@jimroddycba.com. The CBA stands for Coach and Business Advisor. So jim@jimroddycba.com. I'll send you the free ebook of Higher Like You Just Beat Cancer. So, So to give the background, when I was 31 years old, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. The reason I wrote that book was, and it really ties in with what we're talking about today. A lot of what I did, the advice that I give about people, they're doing it, doing it, doing it. They're jumping in and not really doing a good job delegating. I was always told to value your team and hire the right people. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I do that. But it wasn't until I had to be out for several weeks with surgery and then in intermittently over the next 9 months getting chemo that I realized, wait, I am not going to be here every single day, every minute of every day. In fact, I might not be here next year, like at all, if things don't go well. And that really focused me on getting the right people, building the right team, and then building those people up and then delegating to them. So Hire Like You Just Beat Cancer is, again, my personal journey of once I beat cancer, I'm like, okay, stuff just got real. I've got to make sure that I'm building a team and leading them in the right direction and empowering, like you said. That's where I think the walk-on method and the, Hire Like You Just Beat Cancer, where they merge together, it's all that work behind the scenes. And if you put in all that work, you deserve to have success. You will have genuine confidence that you can do better and things will happen for you in a positive manner.
Well said. And I'm glad you're cancer free, obviously.
Me too. Yeah. Now it's been like 24 years cancer free. So kudos to the doctors, the nurses, and everybody who took care of me. So well taken care of, a great support system goes a heck of a long way.
All right. Are you ready for all-star moments, Jim?
Let's do it.
All right. We will get to all-star moments in just a second. To grow as a leader, you must make intentional choices about how you want to show up for yourself and your team. Are you ready to grow your leadership? The Gargano Leadership Group offers expert coaching, consulting, and workshops rooted in our 4 leadership pillars: curiosity, alignment, optimism, and self-awareness. Leadership starts with forging authentic connections, communicating your values, leading with energy and enthusiasm, and truly understanding yourself. Visit garganoleadership.com to get started with us today. Back to the show. So I'm going to take you kind of an underdog mentality. That's what we're talking about today. So with that mentality, who comes to mind when I say the NBA, one singular player who has a great underdog mentality?
So, well, one guy I think of is Steve Kerr. So he bridges both of them, right? Where he is now the coach of the Golden State Warriors. And so Steve Kerr was not the biggest guy in the world, wasn't the most athletic guy in the world, but he put in so much into shooting that he became an incredibly reliable shooter.
Next one, underdog mentality, NFL. Who comes to mind?
Can I do college if you don't mind? Because
Sure.
it's somebody who didn't even make it. Brandon Bullsworth, the Bullsworth Award. He was a walk-on at the University of Arkansas, and a lot of people looked up to him. He tragically was killed in a car accident, but he was somebody larger than life.
Same concept since we talked about UConn earlier, and you told that great story. WNBA, underdog mentality.
You know what? I'm going to go with one of my hometown heroes from Erie, Pennsylvania, Kayla McBride. She has had a wonderful WNBA career. So we're very proud that she is from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Major League Baseball.
God rest his soul, Bob Uecker.
Underdog mentality by way of business success. Who comes to mind?
Good question. Oh, you know what? I'll go with Brandon Landry. He was somebody who we featured in the walk-on method, and the chain that he leads is called Walk-On's Sports Bistro. And so anybody look up Brandon Landry and his story about walking on at LSU and applying all those lessons to his organization, Brandon Landry would be my business guy.
Okay, so we're going to take a step over here for our last one. We're going to go to one of our staple questions because I'm very interested what you're going to say to this. You've hired a lot of people over the course of your career. What do you look for in an ideal candidate to join your team?
Great question. High character. People have the character traits and they strive to be high character, they can learn to do anything and they can be reliable, and there's somebody who you want to go into battle with. So our interview process is way longer than the typical one because we're not just looking at their resume, not just their personality. We're really understanding them as a person.
Jim, this has been great. Thank you very much. We learned so much, and people are going to walk away, drive away, run away, whatever they're doing right now, with so much more inspiration and wisdom. Thank you so much.
Chris, thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. I'm so glad Damon connected us.
And we thank Jim very much for being on the show. In case you missed them and you don't have a copy yet of the Walk-On Method, his book, here are the top 5 methods. Here we go. Number 1, take a big shot. Dare to pursue something far beyond your comfort zone. Number 2, make a passion statement. Show up fully prepared and emotionally committed. Practice with purpose. 3, run uphill. Lean into challenges and embrace the effortful path. Choosing the harder route builds resilience. 4, no fuss, all must. Maximize unique strengths. That's what MUST stands for. Stay cool under pressure and control your emotions. 5, make them throw you out of the gym. Don't quit until you're literally forced out. You heard all of Jim's stories around those 5 methods. Hope you can apply them to your life, your pursuit, athletically, professionally, or what have you. I enjoyed the conversation very much with Jim. Hope you did too. Recommend the podcast, give it a like, make some comments. We love and appreciate you for doing so. Thanks for tuning in to Keep the Line Moving. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers. It means the world to us. If you have a guest recommendation, visit our website at garganoleadership.com, where you'll also find all our archived episodes. For our marketing coordinator and the producer of this podcast, Savin Narwhal, I'm Chris Gargano. Have a fantastic week, everybody.